Last week I spoke to you about a bunch of sleeper cars you could buy for under 30k, and today we're doing the same video again but under £10,000 instead. Now if you've watched the channel for a while, you'll know I've done this video actually like 2 years ago, and obviously the market has changed quite a lot, so we've got 5 new cars to talk about. So if you want to see more sleeper videos like this, then do hit the like button, subscribe as well if you're new. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. You know I have to put a Volvo into basically every single sleeper video that I make, and the S80 V8 is absolutely perfect for this price range. For a car that looks like a sedate executive saloon from the relatively simplistic Swedish brand, it does have a ridiculous engine block, a 4.4 litre V8 which puts out 310 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 6.3 seconds, which is helped by the fact that it's all-wheel drive. This is actually from the second generation S80 released in 2006 for the 2007 model year, and the car ran all the way through to 2016, with the V8 being the most aggressive engine shoved into this frame. That engine was actually built jointly by both Volvo and Yamaha, and built by Yamaha to be both a performant and reliable engine block, if a little bit complex, as there's a bunch of engine electrics on it. It actually sits on the same platform as the Mondeo and comes in SE spec as opposed to the more sporty R spec, meaning that the car looks even more sedate as it doesn't give away any of the flary bits around the bumpers and the likes. These sedate looks translate into the interior as well, which is very plain and, dare I say it, a bit boring. Nothing to shout home about, but absolutely functional in a typical Volvo way. For its age, it's also pretty well equipped in terms of technology, and as is always the case with Volvo, safety is paramount. You'll find these listed anywhere from around the £8,000 mark, but they are incredibly rare, so they don't come up often. Fuel pumps and starter motors have had issues, as well as the Haldex all-wheel drive system, but generally these are good to give you many miles. Next up we have the Lexus GS450h, which is one of my personal favourite sleeper cars, as genuinely no one expecting this luxury Lexus saloon to have a 3.5 litre V6 engine paired with 2 electric motors, putting out a combined 341 brake horsepower and taking it to 60 in 5.7 seconds. This is the third generation GS, with the previous 2 generations both giving us pretty incredible cult classic models that JDM lovers in particular still rate today. The 450h might not be quite as cool as those cars, but it definitely has the potential to be well loved in future still, and it's a much more usable car today anyway, with features like heated and cooled seats, solar energy absorbing glass, keyless stop start, and a bunch of other fiddly bits to make ownership that bit more comfortable. Genuinely, it's right up there in terms of having what you need in any modern car. Maybe you'd like to add in some Apple CarPlay or Android Auto and then you're golden. Though it is certainly a sleeper in how it's designed, being not a super flashy car, that doesn't mean it isn't special. It was the first mass production rear-wheel drive luxury hybrid car ever, and it was given an incredible emissions rating, super ultra low emissions vehicle, so you're certainly future-proofed for a while in one of these. There are actually a bunch of other sleeperish Lexuses you could also get a hold of within our price range, like the LS600h and the RX450h. So I actually think that, like Volvo, being a sleeper is pretty symptomatic of going for a non-sports car Lexus nowadays. You'll find this is from around £4,000, and 10k will get you a 2010 model with around 90,000 miles on the clock. Reliability on these is excellent, as you might expect from Toyota's luxury brand. Just watch for the hybrid batteries, which can be a bit expensive to replace when they get old. Taking third in this list, we have the B7 Audi S4, which certainly looks more aggressive than your average A4, but not so much that your average viewer would expect it to have a 4.2 litre V8 engine, which makes 339 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds. Pretty decent performance. It arrived in late 2004 with a saloon, estate and convertible option. I would say the saloon and estate in particular are the most sleeperish, as for me the convertible looks properly cool with the roof down. It wasn't as performance focused as the equivalent RS6, but it's definitely down those lines, with a bunch of modifications over the standard car like the new springs and dampers, a Torsen center diff, a Bosch electronic stability program, and larger, stronger brakes behind one of the more telltale signs of the 18-inch alloys. On the interior, it's also uprated with a Bose sound system as standard, and for the time some reasonable tech, not on the Lexus's level, but not terrible. It wasn't actually a huge change over the previous generation B6 S4, especially considering they share the same engine setup, but an easy way to see the difference between the two is via the front grille, which is split on the B6 and one piece on the B7. All in though, it's a pretty simple looking Audi saloon or estate, particularly with a D badge. It would be easy to forgive an unsuspecting passerby for thinking it's a 3 litre diesel or equivalent, not knowing about that V8 sitting beneath the bonnet. These start at around the 6k mark, and for 10k we'll be looking at a 2006 model with around 70 to 80,000 miles on it. The biggest problem with these is the timing chain tensioner and guides, which if they go wrong are a real pain to sort and can run you quite a lot of money in labour. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you are, do hit the like button, I'd really appreciate it, and make sure you're subscribed as well for 2 videos every single week. And let me know in the comments down below, Would you rather have a car that was a sleeper from factory or a car that is a sleeper because you've built it? So like bought an old Rover or an old whatever, chucked something mad in it and driven it away. Is that what you prefer, or do you prefer something you buy from the factory? Let me know. Next up, we have a car specifically made to be a luxury car. In fact, it genuinely sits in the limousine class, the Mercedes S500L. Beneath the wafty exterior, it has a 5.5 litre V8 engine which makes 382 brake horsepower, taking it from 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds, matching the slightly more performance-focused S4 we just spoke about. Considering this car was built to ferry the wealthy, executives, and in some cases VIP passengers around, as a highly popular chauffeur car, those specs are pretty ridiculous, especially when you remember that this car was mostly built to host all of Mercedes' best technology and its most comfortable interior. That interior is mostly leather, wood and metal, proper materials replacing the plastic that had been seen pretty significantly in the previous generation and helping it to feel that little bit more luxurious and premium. It's a shame that in many cases Mercedes seem to have dropped these materials today, but at the same time it does make sense given the push towards making lighter, more efficient cars. The only thing I'd say about going for one of these as your sleeper option is that it definitely is the type of car to be driven in rather than to drive. Yes, it's much faster than it looks, and yes, it'd be comfortable to drive, but being a sleeper isn't really where you derive pleasure from when owning one of these. You need to spend around £7,000 to get into one, and 10 grand will get you a 2006 model with around 80,000 miles on it. Mechanically, it's quite a robust car, with many putting hundreds of miles on the clock, but it's worth mentioning that repairs can be expensive, particularly around the suspension and some of the electrical systems. Taking the top spot in this list is another luxury car, but the engine in this beast is utterly ridiculous. It's the BMW 760 Li with its 6-litre V12 engine producing 438 brake horsepower and managing 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds, again like the previous two cars on this list. This 4th generation 7 Series from the bangle butt era of the brand really did a good job of not looking anywhere near as luxurious as it really was. It's not only a sleeper in terms of power and performance then, but in terms of luxury. I would say the S-Class looks like a much more luxurious car from the outside than this, and yet the two are competitors. Yes, Mercedes is the class leader, but the 7 Series isn't a bad alternative as long as you go for the right engine. Even on this large under stress V12, the high pressure fuel pumps were known to go wrong pretty early. In fact, as a result of the reliability across the board and the less than interesting aesthetics, the E65 7 Series generation I would say is probably the least loved, hence prices are so cheap. It was also hugely complicated to work on, typically needing a specialist or at least someone slightly more knowledgeable about BMWs. Most buyers guys will tell you to go back a whole generation to the E38, which was a way more highly regarded luxury BMW in comparison, but it also looks more aggressive or at least more interesting, taking away a little bit from its sleeper status. So it really comes down to whether you're willing to bite the bullet with one of these. A super unassuming BMW with very few fans, but an unbelievable V12 and some very decent luxury for your money with enough push to make it a certified sleeper, but a terrible history of reliability. These will run you around £9,000 at the bottom end, and like the Volvo, they are pretty rare, so you'll need to be quite lucky to find one available. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, a like would be much appreciated, and make sure you're subscribed as well for those 2 videos every single week. Huge thank you for watching, and thanks to the patrons as well for their continued support. And before you go, if you want to watch another video here on a bunch of slightly more expensive sleepers, click up here and subscribe down here.